Hello and welcome to Rule of Carnage. This is a series of conversations that we put on YouTube and also through podcast feeds on the topic of designing better miniature games. It is also on the topic of shipping better miniature games to you through multiple Kickstarters and so forth. I am Mike Hutchinson, designer of Gaslands, A Billion Suns, Hobgoblin, and now Space Gits, which is the topic of this conversation. I am using the wisdom and experience of my friend here, Glenn Ford, a designer and developer of miniature games, and a Longhorn Kickstarter of tabletop games. I am motoring my way over the next couple of months towards launching Space Gits on Kickstarter so that you can help me turn this funny little dexterity miniatures skirmish game into a beautiful physical rulebook. And we've been talking over the last couple of episodes of Rule of Carnage about some of the just frankly numberless considerations when it comes to setting up a Kickstarter, running a Kickstarter, planning, and so forth. We spoke last time about some of the topics around manufacturing and fulfillment. But one thing that we sort of skipped over, which is what is it that you're going to fulfill? What is it that backers are going to choose to buy from you? And what are the considerations that go into both the tier levels on Kickstarter, but also these funny add-on options? And my goodness, there's a lot of ways of skinning this cat, and there's a lot of patterns that I've seen from previous Kickstarters that I'm not certain work for me. And there seems to be a lot of wisdom in inverted commas and like best practice that gets thrown around here. In fact, I should probably add to this list stretch goals, question mark, which is not something I want to do. And we can talk about why I'm not interested in doing stretch goals. So Glenn, basic tier creation, like what is
Yeah.
your kind of, as you're starting to think about this for your own projects, like what is it that I should be thinking about with Space Kits and tiers?
Um, I I think keep it simple. I think
Hmm.
particularly now that Kickstarter has a properly integrated and sort of accepting of complexity inbuilt add-on system.
Mm.
I think keep the base tiers fairly simple. Um, I think the rule of thumb is a nothing tip tier. I genuinely think remains a good thing. The access to the pledge manager tier slash way for influencers that just want to, not really commit but give their followers a nod tier is what I think of that as. So I have a few hundred followers on Kickstarter.
Mm.
There are various people I know who make Kickstarters, small indies. I don't necessarily want their game, not because it's not a good game, but because I've got hundreds and hundreds of games,
Yeah,
over
sure.
there. And I cover a lot of categories. I want to go over and have my followers see that there's a cool project launched. I don't want to back at a level where I'm going to get anything. Just being able to go by, tick the $1 tip thing, just means that I can go give someone some basically free advertising. It's a fairly niche thing, but I always
Well,
appreciate it.
I mean, I think it's also useful because it's an alternative modality for the favorite button. So I have as a backer gone past and been like, "Mm, I'm kind of interested in this. Let me back it at the $1, and I'll come back and I'll bump that up if I'm feeling rich enough at the end of the month or whatever."
Yeah, there's a
And it's
whole
in my list. It's not like hidden away and it's going to notify me. It's like it is one of my projects that I'm interested in.
yeah, there's a whole conversation to be had about limited tiers and limited extremely big tiers.
All right, well, I'm going to add my $1 tier because I had forgotten about that. So that's going in.
Okay, so yeah, I always stick on a $1 tier, and also now access to the pledge manager tier is what that tends to be. Is a very common thing that a lot of backers will expect.
Right, it's also an add-ons only kind of a tier function
Essentially,
as
yeah.
well.
So
Yeah.
they'll stick their dollar in. They'll wait until the thing is like in production, da da da, etc., etc. and then you're going through the pledge manager, and then when it comes into the pledge manager, you see exactly how much shipping is going to cost and exactly how much shipping is going to cost at the various levels with the various add-ons. And then you can go, right, now I know the actual numbers, now I'm going to actually commit, to the pledge manager. And they could come in to the pledge manager like from cold, but if you've got them on the $1 tier level, they're in. They're going to be updated. They're going to be alerted. They have at least some money, like in the thing, so it does help encourage them.
Yeah.
And also you're picking people up on 2 different platforms depending on where you do your pledge manager. So I think the $1 tier is worth having personally.
Cool.
And various creators have done things on their $1 tier which you can use to be fun and so one of the well-known ones is again Jamie Stegmaier for Viticulture toasted with a sip of wine everybody who did the $1 tier, and there is a video of him getting thoroughly blasted doing that because he got a lot of $1 backers. But that's a nice way of like your first or like second update after the campaign where you don't have a lot to say can be you prattling about and doing whatever it was you said you'd do for every $1 backer.
Yeah.
We can send them an email. I give people access to an STL of the SS Amiga on the on SSO projects. I've got it. Cost me nothing to give people. And then I would say the minimum and maybe ideal, depending on what you're trying to do, is the core product level, the thing that people like. I go on that level. I am getting the thing.
Yeah.
The official thing. And ideally, I think that should be like your first tier, your first proper tier, but that's not always possible.
Yeah, in my case, I'm thinking like the next one up is the digital only tier, and then it's the core, what I'm calling right now the core pledge, which is like you get the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The core pledge level, and if you have one, an all-in level, and it's nice to put some form of all-in level because there are all-in backers who will only back if they're doing an all-in level. And it's also a great way to like punch up your numbers above the like to sort of ramp your the money coming in. There will be backers, and this is something that everybody I know who has run a Kickstarter talk about. There will be backers who treat backing a Kickstarter like throwing a towel over a sun lounger. It's there if I want it, and I can just take it back again just as easy.
Yeah. I have dipped into many Kickstarters in that mode.
Yeah, and so
then later backed out, realizing, oh, I don't have the funds for that, or I'm not as interested as I initially instinctually thought.
Yeah, and that's one of I think the increasingly large number of arguments against early bird backer tiers is that you see severe drop-offs in campaigns that offer big early birds in the like
right, because there's an extra motivation to do a slightly not real towel throw.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. I wasn't considering doing an early bird, and I'm now certain I won't.
Yeah, I've got a list of problems with early birds, and it's a thing that Stegmaier agrees with me. Early birds, I think best avoided at this point. I can't see any good argument, and I can see several really bad arguments. I know that there are certain backers who will only back if there's an early bird because they want to be part of a certain sort of club, and I'm not sure that that's particularly healthy for the creator though. And then where and if you put in other tiers, I think is a matter of taste. I definitely think there is a too many tiers situation. I've seen campaigns with 15 tiers, and that's not the most. I think 5 is towards an upper level. On the other hand, there is definitely a marketing advantage to having little steps between the core level and the all-in level, whatever that is. How cynical you want to be about putting those sorts of steps in to like eke people in. I'm not a fan of it, but I totally understand it. But personally, I would say like 4 to 5 is a very healthy number of them. And like you say, yeah, you're going to have a sort of a digital level and then the core level.
Yeah, so before we move on to talking about add-ons, so let me explain a little bit about where I'm at with what I think is available through the Kickstarter, and then kind of like where my head's at for the tier levels. So I'm making this game as a rule book. So Space it's going to be a nice rule book. You know, I'm see if I can make it hardback. I think that would be cool, but I don't know exactly yet. I also want to have it as a PDF. That's good, you know, good for lots of reasons. Then what's exciting is that I'm in conversation with Cromlech, a fairly well-known Polish miniature design company. They have a long and storied history in making lovely sort of 40k orc stuff. So you get all kinds of alternative orc boys and things. They have a very characterful range. Long story short, I want to offer miniatures to backers of the Space Gits Kickstarter because that does a couple things. One, from a player perspective, it gives you everything you need to play the game, other than some bottle caps, which kind of that's the point of this game, is you have a few beers and those become your objects. But the other like more businessy reason is that will give me an opportunity to increase the average backer size, and that will be something that Kickstarter's algorithm is favorable towards, and therefore that might mean that it gets a little bit more visibility in the algorithm and the discovery side of the platform, and that will lead to more backers, and so that's good. So the relationship that I'm building with them, like basically they were super excited that there would be a orc centric game, that their miniatures could be kind of heroed and front and center. That was wildly exciting for them. Like, you know, they're about 10 or 12 years old, you know, but like finding they haven't made games. In fact, the initial reason they contacted me was they were interested in, you know, would I write them a game. That has evaporated under the Space Gits thing. Maybe it'll come back round again, but they're interested to be like a partner on this, and so that is a couple of interesting things come away from that. But the first and simplest thing is I'm inventing for this game a background setting where it's like an urban sort of city. It's like an orc metropolis where all of the warriors have already gone to war, and what you're left with is the sort of urban dregs. So it's way more like a kind of Mega City 1 Judge Dredd situation, but everyone's an orc. So I'm building factions that are like the grill cooks and like the sort of city swine, like half toffs, half hobos, you know, people who like there's mimes on the street. So, you know, there's like street perform, like it's that kind of a vibe. It's like what would go on in like a properly massive orc mega city that isn't like that, all the non-combatants. So I think that because of the vast number of pieces that they have in the Cromlech range, I can create funny little factions that are buildable out of Cromlech pieces, but have their own identity. So the chefs is a good one. Like they've got bodies with pot bellies and vests, with heads with chef hats, and, you know, big cleaver arms. Great. We have everything that we need to construct a Grill Cooks Space Gits faction. So I'm making 3 of those, and I'm basically agreeing with Cromlech, like, I'll order these SKUs from you in these proportions, and then that will be kind of like something that I can get the fulfillment company to pick and pack. Hopefully I can get Cromlech to like collect the pieces that I need together into a new SKU, which they can sell, and I can have 1 pick rather than 4 picks for every crew. But that would mean that I can offer a couple things. So one would be I can offer as add-ons these crews, easy, no problem. I can also get an all-in bundle where you get the rulebook and you get the PDF and you get each of these 3 things, super easy. And it means that the add-ons, you can add multiples of these crews if you wanted to or whatnot. The other thing that they're potentially agreeing to do, and this is at the time of recording, not something that's like done and signed, but like this is what we're discussing. They might do an exclusive miniature. So they might design a kind of character miniature that fits into this world, but that would also make sense in their range. And that would be cool. That would be like a Space Gits exclusive sort of miniature that I can add to the, like the game bundle pledge that's got the rule book and the exclusive miniature. Like that's kind of the core thing. Like what you can't get anywhere else is the rule book and the exclusive miniature. And if you
Mm.
wanted those crews, you could get them from Cromlech directly, but you could also add them on for the convenience of having the grill chefs as an add-on. And then the all-in rulebook, all these three crews, and the exclusive miniature.
So I suppose the question is, one of the questions is the all-in level a thing with three crews, or is it a two-player starter set? And therefore you've got to, because the logical way most people will think of things, even if it's a multiplayer game, is do I have everything I need to play with my buddy out of the box?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so it's like, the question, and it's a sort of marketing and perspective question, and I'm not saying there's a right answer, is the all-in level a two-player starter set, and you can pick any two of the three factions on the, pledge manager or the Kickstarter questionnaire when it comes through. And then if you want to add on the third crew, a third crew is available as an add-on, and that makes it a instantly and easily understandable for a person who wants unpack play with friend.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing that I hadn't got a strong sense about, because I think this is like where my lack of understanding about add-ons and also pledge managers comes and bites me. So I created a pledge initially that was game plus one crew, and one of the items in that would be pick any crew you like. Because I've done this with other miniature Kickstarters, like I did no, not going to remember the name of it, but like one of the core pledges was basically like choose two of our five crews.
Mm.
And at some point I must have chosen the crew, but damn it, I can't remember the mechanism by which I elected to choose those crews. Like, was it at the moment that I backed? Was it through the add-ons? Was it at the point of the pledge manager? And so I right now in my draft have just said, do you know what? Let's just do a game pledge with add-ons to add crews and an everything that I'm offering pledge, which is the three crews, because I don't know how the best way to achieve just add one crew is. Maybe it's super obvious.
Well, I think the thing to consider about your pledge tiers is how backers are is you're trying to avoid confusing backers as much as possible. That's your
Yes.
number one goal here. And I think that if backers go, okay, here's the thing that is just the rule book. I understand that. Here's the thing that is everything I need to play a basic level of the game. I understand that. If it's instead, here's the rule book and here's a thing that's going to give me three crews. Do I need three crews? Am I going to play with three people?
Mm.
What if I only want to play with two people? Am I paying for a crew that I don't want?
Mm.
And while there are people who just scroll down to the all in, hit the all in, and then walk away, um, I think there are more people who are going to go like, just tell me what I need. Just tell me what
Mm.
I need. Where's the what I
Mm.
need level? That one. I'll have the what I need level, please.
So if I had a game bundle, which is like the two-player set, and it's one copy of the rules and it's two crews, how would I achieve the selection of the crews? At what moment in the backer's journey would that best be achieved?
Typically, you'll do that at a pledge manager level.
Okay, so after, yeah, okay, so when they're coming back to pay for shipping, it's like now choose the crews that you want.
Yeah, I think that's when people are programmed to like assume that they're going to make choices about. You can do it straight on Kickstarter. Kickstarter has an option to let people pick, whatever. Kickstarter sells clothes. It has it set up so you can choose your size in the shoe that you're buying or whatever it is. So it is there on Kickstarter. I think personally in like game campaigns, people are now programmed that managers are so ubiquitous that they'll make that kind of decision making during the pledge manager. And that's where I would lean to doing it. But if there's a question of like how many sprues you're going to have to order from Cromlech, you might want to do it on Kickstarter, but you can get people to confirm on the pledge manager as far ahead of shipping as you want. So ends up being a logistics question. But I
Yeah.
would do it in the pledge manager personally.
Okay, that works. I really like this idea of approaching it because I think I had fallen into the common trap of approaching it from my perspective rather than from the player's perspective. And I think this idea of saying, like, I'm a player that wants the game or I'm a player that wants the two-player starter set is a really strong way of organizing the tiers. So it's like, do I just want to have a read of the game? Do I want, and I've already got the models to play it. Do I want everything that I need for the starter game so that I can just unpack the box and I'm ready to go? Or do I want everything shower me with goodies, give me all the things? So the other part of the conversation with Cromlech, which is only just emerged over the last couple of days as we're recording, is there's some funny little ideas about terrain in Space Gits. And so there is a couple things. One is a vending machine that when you punch it, it delivers goodies like a hat, like a saucepan that you can wear as a hat, or an energy drink that can give you more speed, etc., etc. So and one of the pieces of artwork is a very strong image of a orc punching um, a vending machine. And it's very Homer Simpson. So making a little vending machine, they're excited to do that. Would be a little resin terrain piece. That would be cool. There's also another funny little terrain item called a teleportaloo, which is, you know, going to be a cross between a portable chemical toilet and the phone booth from Bill and Ted's. I'm really excited to see if there's going to be like some orky machinery on the back that, like, you know how the shock attack gun teleports snotlings, like when you shit into this toilet it teleports the shit away somewhere, but like where does it go? Where does all this crap go?
There is an orc somewhere who knows exactly where it all went.
Yeah, 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 anyway. So those are two pieces of terrain that, like, you don't need to play, but my goodness, that'll be jolly.
Mm.
And so then it's like, well, okay, for the all-in pledge, you definitely get one each of those, and like they're definitely add-ons. And do I add them to the two-player starter set? Well, maybe they're kind of fun and cool, but like equally, they're like super easy just to have as add-ons.
Yeah, and well, I think
And
this
you
is
might decide, oh, I'd quite like three of these because I'd quite like to make a little orc street or whatever.
yeah, I think like obviously your all in level is just going to wang everything into it because the people who are going to go on that level are like, I don't. What I primarily want is to not find out later on that I didn't get some gear.
Yeah,
I'm backing at that level because what I do not want is after it all gets delivered, somebody else goes, "Oh, I got the Wang Dizzle," and I'm like, well, I haven't got a Wang Dizzle. I
yeah.
prefer that's what your all in level is kind of about. What your official like here's the two-player offering, I think is a I think it's a slightly tricksy thing for minis games
Mm.
on Kickstarter, in my opinion, because like on the one hand, minis gamers are our make do and mend hobbyists and like have all sorts of things they want to knock about and have very specific opinions about how many models they want to buy and if they want to buy any models or if they want to make themselves a vending machine out of plasticard and snot. On the other hand, you have an audience who are pre-packaged board game backers who primarily want an understandable.
That's the you, as in, as a person on Kickstarter, you have an audience.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Who primarily what they want is a super understandable, correct level to back at to get the game.
Yeah, and I can't offer that. I mean, I could offer that because like there's a pack of scatter terrain that I could also order from Cromlech. Like I could totally add that in. So like it could be the case that like you get a pack of the barricades and a teleportaloo and a thing. And honestly, I don't have the I don't have the bottle caps, but or the dice because I don't want to send those things around. But at that point, it's just like bottle caps and dice, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and again, I think that this one ends up being a little bit of a marketing thing and figuring out the sweet spot is a taste thing, where it's like, is the point, hey, even you guys who aren't minis gamers, the two-player thing gives you the weird stuff you definitely need to play with, i.e., some orc miniatures.
Yeah,
The point of what we do as these crazy punk minis gamers is everything else is whatever gumph you want to chuck onto the
yeah.
table. Dump some Jenga blocks out, some beer caps, and some dice. That's what's exciting about what we weirdos do.
Mm.
Or is it, here's a nice, clean offering. you don't need to worry about terrain and, other bits and pieces. This is a sort of a proper boxed game offering, and there's not a right and a wrong. Like, I think,
No, definitely. And it's a little bit tempting in this direction because it's quite a because it's quite a silly little party game. It is quite tempting to offer it in that sort of add a few bits of terrain and it does become a genuine starter set. But at the same time, I need to remember about who my audience is. And my audience is highly evolved miniatures gamers who can understand why this thing is cool on multiple levels. And you have to be fairly deep in to the rabbit hole to kind of understand the hell that Space Gits is exciting. So at the same time, it's like, well, if my primary audience is split into two, it's like Mike Hutchinson fans who are, big into miniature skirmish games. That's why they know who I am and are interested in backing me. And if I catch wind, and we can talk about this in the marketing part of the conversation at some later episode, but like if I manage to catch some wind in the 40k orc community, like they will be excited because they already have orc terrain and orc miniatures, and this is like the most orky way of playing a miniature skirmish game that you can imagine. So they're also not necessarily a customer for a slightly tidier two-player starter set. There's that third hypothetical audience, which is like drive-by backer of Kickstarter projects finds this miniature thing and goes, "Is this for me? Oh, look, there's a simple to understand two-player starter set. Is that an important? Is that important enough to dilute my tiers with?"
yeah, there's to say, I wouldn't put in extra tiers for it, and I
Mm,
think, again, because you've got the add-on option, that gives you the flexibility these days. What I would say is that it's like, where's the compromise point on that specific offering, which will get enough of a percentage of the casual non-minis gamers to go like, yeah, I think I can understand what I need, and there's enough of what I need in this thing that I reckon I can do this thing. I'm not frightened by the idea of playing this sort of thing that I'm not super familiar with, while still having like the more minis game educated and owning of miniatures crowd go,
mm,
that's enough extra orcs that I want to own that amount of extra bump without going like, what am I going to do with that thing?
yeah.
And obviously, a certain amount of that audience are going to just be like, you know what? I have orcs up the yin yang. I don't need any more orcs. The book is inherently.
Maybe, but that's where I think the magic will happen with, and I'll talk a little bit about this, although we'll go into much more detail in the marketing conversation. Um, that's where I think the magic of having a strong kit bash and painting part of this. So I've got a guy called Tyler Rosso, who is a fabulous orc centric creator. He's a $1 billion clown club on YouTube and on Instagram. He has kind of like 20 22 25k backers, but he's got a certain kind of madness that I adore and that really suits the Space Gits project as well. He's going to do the kit bashing, but it's going to be around these like non-combatant, hobos and chefs and mimes and whatever. And so even if you've got lots of orcs, you have never thought of building your orcs into like, street performers so
Mm,
that they can battle with like invisible psychic shields because they believe that their invisible walls are real.
mm.
And so they are real. And so like I think hopefully the magic trick that I can do is by having inspiring both kit bash and paint jobs, it will be like, yes, okay, I want access to this fun and this hobby, and I want to have a go at this, even though I've got loads of orc boys from my army. This is new, this is exciting. I'm
Mm.
going to buy these because this is the recipe to make, a delicious piece of Korean cooking that I've never tried.
Yeah, I think the thing that's weird and interesting about tier levels on Kickstarter is you get like the little paragraph thing and some bullet points, and everything else that you put on your Kickstarter page, at least some of your backers aren't going to bother reading. And
Mm.
a lot of it, a shockingly high percentage of backers just aren't. They're going to scroll
Look
down,
at the
look at some
pickies.
stuff, and go, right. The one thing that every single person who backs your Kickstarter is going to look at and actually read are those tier levels, which are these tiny, incredibly sparse things that are a number, and a couple of descriptions at the side, or of the menu. So I do think they are a thing that, like, a bit of like extra thinking and work around is sort of worth doing. But yeah,
That actually makes me think like something else as well, which is you see this sometimes, but you don't see it everywhere. Your tier descriptions can be very businesslike and precise, or they can be bursting with flavor. And I think in this situation, it's interesting to think how I might have a lot of flavor in those, because if that's the only thing you're reading, like that's a way of communicating the game in an exciting but like
yeah,
practical way.
yeah, so sort of getting sort of detailed into it, there are like four pieces of basic information in any sort of tier level that every backer's going to see. There's obviously the price, and obviously you're going to try and make that a sort of a tempting thing. There's the title, there's a little description, and there's a bullet points of what goes into that tier. Because for people who don't happen to know, because they haven't set up a Kickstarter, what happens when you set up tier levels in a Kickstarter is you type in a bunch of products, and they get stored on Kickstarter as a list of product things, and
Mm.
then you build a tier, and then you select from a drop-down menu of which of the products you've built are going to go into that tier. You don't like type in each product
Yeah, you sort
separately.
of you sort of have to build your own little database.
Yeah, and so what you see on a Kickstarter is you get a bunch of like a little bullet point list, which are the products that have been selected as they were
Mm.
described as products in your product description. You get a paragraph, which can be whatever the hell you want to type in, and you get a short title.
And nowadays you also get an image.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Quite
yeah.
important,
You can
I
have an
think.
image now as well. And my personal perspective is the title wants to be a fairly cold sort of two-player starter set,
Hmm.
clear, sharp. All right, I know. I see the words. I'm looking for the two-player starter set. I want a two-player starter set. To avoid that, you want that to not confuse your offering, not
Hmm.
to muddy the waters, not to do anything like that. For the rest of it, because you're going to have this bullet pointed thing that will ideally be like, bullet point two factions worth of orcs, bullet point the book, bullet point the PDF. You then have that paragraph to be like the mad boys you need to, loot, scoot, and shoot for two drunken players or whatever it can be. And so that's the way I would like section out that thinking. The
Yeah.
paragraph can be like a fun thing, the title just really sort of as cold as you can get it, as unconfusing and clear and unmuddied as you can get it. And I think generally this is one of the reasons where like
And I think with the image, actually, where I'm thinking with the image is if I can find a way of essentially heroing the products that you will be purchasing, like make that as visual a representation of this is the stuff that you get. I find some Kickstarters really struggle with this because they've gotten to the point where when you unpack their boxed game, it's like so busy that like you try and put a little picture of that and like it's too small and you just can't see. But like, with me, it'll be like there's a book and there's some miniatures standing on it or something so you can kind of see like, okay, which is it that I want? Yeah, I want that in my house.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like you've got a Kickstarter page, and you can put like I always put a big graphic of these are the pledge levels properly explained. This is the pledge
Mm.
level. This is what you get in it. This is a nice, clear, big picture of what you get in it, and then like, oh, here are the add-ons explained and all that sort of stuff. And you've got infinite room on the Kickstarter page. You just can't guarantee that every person is going to look at every bit of the main page. You can guarantee they're all going to look at the first screen, the first couple of scroll downs, and if they're going to back the pledge level, you've got to get them in the first couple of scroll downs, and they've got to understand everything that they see in the pledge levels. And anything past the first few scroll downs, there's a good chance that most people are never going to get to.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like let's say 4 or 5 tiers, clear, unmuddied, unconfused sort of levels. And this is like one of the things you were saying about like, you've got whatever hobgoblin, perilous tales, etc., etc. If you're going to offer those, I think those are very much things that I would put in as add-ons these days, because it
Yeah, I hadn't even considered doing that actually, because like when I was looking at Zine Quest, I was thinking, oh, I might do one of these games in Zine Quest, and then that would be a great opportunity to have add-ons for all my other zines. I think in Space Gits, I think I'm going to be totally Space Gits focused, and I'm not gonna muddy the water with anything else. I might change my mind on that as I start to build it out and think, do you know what? It's no skin off anyone's nose that like I add a few zines at the bottom of this add-on list, like whatever.
Yeah, because you don't have to particularly explain what they are on the main page. You can put an
Because if
FAQ.
they're at the bottom and you only encounter them during like that add-on stage, you'd be like, I don't know what this is. Just get me to the checkout.
Yeah,
But that is also a point where it's like I don't know whether these are. So I'm starting to doubt whether I will check out on this basket. Like if
yeah,
all that happens is you go, if all that happens is you go, oh, I want the add-on, I want the all-in pledge, and then nothing new appears, and you're like, yeah, I've got all this, cool.
yeah.
Whereas if you go all in and then you're like, what's all these other games that don't make any that have no reference to this, then it'd be like, wait, so to get all in, I have to actually buy all these add-ons as well? Like,
That is also something that again that pledge managers I think give you a nice option to do
oh,
because
because I could add those at the pledge manager level, not at the Kickstarter.
yeah, those can be available on the pledge manager and not on the Kickstarter. And then again, people have a little mental thing where they go, I have been gated through to the
Yeah, and I think
manager.
like that introduces some additional logistical risk if those things were like things I didn't have in stock or things that were complicated to manufacture and I wasn't really calculating them in because they weren't part of the backer numbers. But like if they are zines in my garage that I can easily get printed locally if I need a few more, then that feels like a sensible, like that's not a very risky thing to do. But I can
Mm.
see why, like if I suddenly invented a load of miniatures that I added at that stage, like that would be insane, and that would blow the planning out of the water.
Yeah, I think I'd consider putting whatever else you have available on the pledge manager as an available upgrade because people also sort of people accept that they're going to be upsold during a pledge manager. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
they're like,
Yeah, I have upsold I have up bought during pledge managers when it's like a little miniature company. It's like I backed for the new miniatures and they're like, oh wow, these ones are really cool as well. Like I'm already in the process of paying for shipping and checking out like another $20 or whatever to get these cool guys as well. Like yeah, it's a good thing.
yeah, and
And
I think
maybe I'll pick up some more purchases of like the little terrain pieces and stuff at that point if people are like, well, I'm already in on the game. Yeah, this teleporter lose kind of fun.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's my short viewpoint, relatively short viewpoint on tier levels and add-ons.
That was phenomenally useful. I hope you folks at home found it as useful to listen to this conversation as I had to have it.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably wrap up on that conversation. A little bit shorter than the previous couple, but I think getting into pledge managers now will be a conversation. So
Yeah,
I think we'll
we'll come back on that. We still need to talk about pledge managers. We still need to talk about marketing. I've got other things that I'm worrying about that we can talk about.
absolutely. So there are going to be more conversations in this mini series. I think upcoming, and we'll probably
Well,
diary.
and also, dear listener, you are listening to us speaking some probably a month before this record is dropping. So a lot of things will have happened since then, and we shall find out in a couple of weeks what they are.
Yes, so the next conversation will be interesting because Mike will be a good few weeks further along in his discovery process and might have different and unusual questions. If you've backed a Kickstarter and it has had a proliferation of tier levels that baffled and confused you, please swing down to the comment section. Tell us what the correct number of tier levels would have been. Have you upsold, upbought? Have you dumped a load of add-ons onto a Kickstarter? How did you be tempted by the add-on fairy at the various points? Do you prefer them in a pledge manager? All this information and more will be of great value and worth. So please do go down to the comments section and give us your golden opinions.
And this is not just to juice the YouTube algorithm. This is like genuinely, I am in like discovery mode, trying to understand what people want and how they react. So yeah, just like let me know because the way that you like things to be, like if you let me know, that might be the way that they end up being because your
Yeah.
opinion is valued.
Yes, and Mike's not the only creator who might be reading our comment section and will want to know this information. So give forth your wisdom, please do.
Mhm.
Hit the like and subscribe while you're down there. And if you're in a wisdom giving mood, check out our link section. There'll be a link across to our Discord where you can hold forth on how you like a Kickstarter to be. You can also swing by on the link over to the Space Gits page that Mike
Spits.
Mike is sitting before the banner of, and give it a follow. Swing by our Patreons and help Mike to be supported during the development of the Space Kits, and
Thank
our
you.
websites to buy various things from us and give Mike the experience of fulfillment in a very small level. But for now, I think from this conversation, this rule of carnage would be a thank you and goodbye. So thank you and goodbye. Bye bye.
Goodbye, you gits.